Hi, friends. I just got back from vacation, and looking back, I realized that it took me 3 days to settle into it. 3 full days. 3 days before I stopped reaching for my phone to check messages. 3 days before I stopped mentally organizing my to-do list while sitting by the pool. 3 days before my brain stopped asking, what should I be doing right now? What's next? What can I knock out while I have a minute? Because if I'm being really honest, I realized how attached I had become to the feeling of productivity. The feeling of crossing things off, of the completing the task, moving quickly, beating the clock, trying to stay ahead of time. And when all of that suddenly stopped, I felt restless, uncomfortable, and almost guilty. Not because anything was wrong, but because my body was resting and my brain was still searching for the next assignment. And that showed me something, that even on vacation, I was still chasing a version of myself. The productive version, the high capacity version, the version who always has a plan, the version who knows what comes next. And I don't think that I'm alone in that, because I hear versions of this every week in the coaching conversations that I have. I just need to get back on track. I need to get back to who I was before. I just need one really good week again. And maybe you've said that too. Maybe you've had a week where everything clicked, and now you keep trying to get back to her. The woman who had the solid week, the woman who felt organized, the woman who felt in control, the woman who made it look easy. So today, we're talking about the version of you that you keep chasing and why she may be keeping you stuck. Welcome back to Your Relationships Are Keeping You Fat, a Miss New Booty Fitness podcast. I'm your host, Darla, National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. And if you've ever found yourself trying to recreate an old routine, an old body, an old level of motivation, or an old version of yourself, you're going to want to stay with me for this one. Have you ever had one of those weeks where everything just worked? You meal prepped, you hit your workouts, your protein was on point, you drank your water, you got to bed on time, and you didn't eat standing over the kitchen counter. You felt energized, you were present, more connected, and felt like yourself again. And somewhere during that week, you thought, there she is, I'm back. And then life happened. A child got sick, your cycle changed, work became overwhelming. You had company in town, you traveled, maybe you stopped sleeping well, your migraines showed up, your parent needed extra help, or your schedule got rearranged. And then suddenly, you couldn't recreate that week. But instead of seeing that week as one moment in time, you turned it into the standard. The week where you finally felt like yourself again became the week that you kept trying to repeat. And now you're spending months trying to recreate 7 days. 7 days that happened under completely different circumstances. You are trying to recreate the same structure, the same energy, the same output, the same version of yourself. But here's what I've noticed after years of coaching women, that many of you are not only chasing fat loss. Women are chasing a version of themselves. The woman before burnout, before the caregiving, before perimenopause, before the grief, before chronic stress, before children, before the promotion, before the diagnosis, before life became heavier. And sometimes we're not even chasing our own former self. We're chasing someone else's solid week. A friend tells you that she works out 6 days per week, or someone in your gym says that they never miss a cardio session, or a woman online shares her morning routine that starts at 4:30 a.m. Another woman says that she's eaten a certain number of calories and losing weight, and then your brain immediately starts negotiating. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. Maybe that's why my body isn't changing. So you ask what they're doing, you compare your plan to theirs, you compare your results to their results, and before you realize it, you start abandoning what your body needs this week to chase what appears to be working for someone else. But here's the question that we rarely ask. What resources does that person have available that I don't? How much sleep are they getting? Who helps with their childcare? What does their workday look like? Are they caring for aging parents? Are they in a season of grief? Are they managing chronic stress? Do they have more recovery time than I do? Because often we're not comparing bodies. We are actually comparing capacity. And then capacity changes from week to week or season to season, and life circumstances change to different life circumstances. And this doesn't only happen when we compare ourselves to other people. Sometimes the person that we're fighting to keep up with is a version of ourselves from a different week. A week where we had more energy, we had more clarity, we had more capacity. A week where our body wasn't asking us to slow down. And I see this in my own life too. If you've been around for a while, you know that I experience migraines. And when a migraine week shows up, everything changes. My workouts change, my screen time changes, my schedule changes, my tolerance for light, noise, and stimulation changes. And sometimes the only things that my body can handle are a dark room, the quiet electrolytes, and sleep. And those weeks do not look like my best weeks. I'm not checking every box. I'm not moving through my to-do list quickly. I'm not producing at the level that I usually expect from myself. And for a long time, I fought that. I would try to force my normal routine. I would try to make up for the lost time. I would try to prove to myself that I was still disciplined. And all it did was make me more frustrated and make my head hurt even more. Because I wasn't honoring the body that I had that week, I was trying to operate from the capacity that I had on a completely different week. And I think many of us do this. Maybe for you, it's PMS. Maybe it's perimenopause. Maybe it's burnout. Maybe it's caregiving. Maybe it's a demanding work season. Maybe it's a week where your child doesn't sleep. Or maybe it's simply a season where life is asking more from you. But instead of adjusting, we compare. We compare ourselves to our good weeks, to old routines, or to previous versions of ourselves. And then we judge ourselves when we can't recreate them. But my migraine weeks are not failed weeks. They are weeks that require a different relationship with my body. And maybe that's true for you too. And if you listened to last week's episode about productivity identity, you probably already know where we're going next. Because for many high-achieving women, the version that they're chasing is not just leaner. She is not just more disciplined. She is more productive. She gets more done. She never misses workouts. She meal preps every Sunday. She wakes up before everyone else. She answers the emails. She volunteers. She takes care of everyone. She stays useful. She stays needed. She stays ahead. And somewhere along the way, we begin believing that our worth lives inside our output. So if we're productive, that means we're valuable. If we're helping, then we're valuable. If we're carrying everything, we're valuable. And when we can't maintain that pace anymore, we don't just feel disappointed. we feel like we're failing. But here's what I've learned personally and through coaching hundreds of women. Your body does not care how many emails you answered. Your body is not keeping score of how many people you helped. Your body is not impressed by how much you can push through. Your body is asking a much simpler question. Do I have what I need today? Whether that be food, sleep, recovery, connection, safety. And if the answer is no, your body adjusts. One reason that asking for help feels so hard is because many of us confuse support with dependence. We think if I need help, I am not independent. If I cannot do it alone, then I am not strong. If I need accountability, I should be embarrassed. Or if I need structure, I must be failing. But support is not the opposite of strength. Support is often what allows your strength to continue. Think about training. A muscle does not grow from effort alone. It needs stress, yes, but it also needs recovery. It needs nutrients, it needs rest, it needs time, it needs progression, it needs a plan. You would never look at a muscle and say, you should be able to grow without support, because that would make no sense. But we do this to ourselves all the time. We expect our habits to grow without structure. We expect our health to improve without help. We expect our bodies to change while our lives keep demanding more from us. And then we blame ourselves when we cannot sustain it. But maybe the issue is not weakness. Maybe the issue is that you're missing infrastructure. Help is infrastructure. Accountability is infrastructure. Meal planning is infrastructure. A shared calendar is infrastructure. A grocery list is infrastructure. A coaching check-in is infrastructure. A partner taking over bedtime is infrastructure. A friend walking with you is infrastructure. A planned rest day is infrastructure. Support does not make you less capable. It gives your capacity somewhere to land. And that is such an important distinction because a lot of us say that we want more capacity, but we keep removing the very things that would help us hold it. We want to be more consistent, but we resist accountability. We want to feel less overwhelmed, but we keep carrying tasks that no one asked us to carry alone. We want our health to feel sustainable, but we treat support like something that we should have outgrown. And that is where this old belief sneaks in. There's a sentence that I hear often: I should be able to do this on my own. And every time I hear it, I want to slow it down. Where did that rule come from? Who taught you that needing help meant that you were failing? Who benefits from you believing that you should carry everything alone? Most of the things that we are trying to do in real life were never meant to be done without support. Raising children, managing a household, building a career, maintaining a marriage, caring for aging parents, healing your relationship with food, losing weight, training consistently, changing your habits, regulating your stress. You can take responsibility for your life without doing everything alone. Those are not the same thing, and that distinction matters because responsibility says, I am willing to participate in my own change. Isolation says, I am only worthy if I can do this without needing anyone. And those two create very different outcomes. One builds self-trust and the other builds exhaustion. So when a woman says, I don't know why I just can't get it together, I want to ask, what else are you carrying? Because sometimes the issue is not that you lack discipline. Sometimes your body is trying to build health inside a life that has very little room for recovery. So if you're listening and you feel exhausted, you are not weak. You may be carrying more than your body has had space to recover from. And this is exactly why I love coaching conversations so much, because when we slow the story down, we can usually see that the issue is not laziness. It is not a lack of desire, and it is not that someone suddenly stopped caring about her nuts, and is not someone that suddenly stopped caring about her goals. A lot of the time, she has been trying to build health while carrying a life that keeps pulling her away from herself. And once we name that, we can stop shaming the behavior and start understanding what the body and the life are asking for. In fact, this week I had 2 coaching conversations that made me think deeply about this episode. The first client admitted something that many women never say out loud. From the outside, everything looked good. She was showing up for work, she was taking care of her family, she was supporting everyone around her, meeting every obligation, and no one would know that she was struggling. But privately, her health was suffering. Her energy was gone, her goals had slowly disappeared from her life, and she realized something important. She had become so good at caring for everyone else that she no longer knew how to include herself in that care. And that's a painful realization because sometimes your life looks responsible from the outside, while your body is quietly telling the truth on the inside. The second conversation unfolded over time. This client kept saying, I just want to get back to where I was when I was in the best shape of my life. And I hear some version of that often. So in this time, I asked a different question. Tell me about your life back then. What did your days look like? What kind of structure did you have? What responsibilities were you carrying? What communities were you a part of? Or what made that season feel so meaningful? And over the next 3 months, we kept returning to those same questions because sometimes the insight does not happen in one conversation and sometimes it unfolds slowly. So after about 3 months, she had a breakthrough. What she realized was that she was not actually attached to the body that she had during that season. She was attached to how she felt in her life at that time. She remembered feeling more in control. She was more connected to herself. She was more certain. Life felt simpler and it was more predictable. And as we continue talking, she recognized another layer, that the communities, routines, and the relationships that shaped that old chapter no longer fit who she is today. She had outgrown them, just like she had outgrown the circumstances that she lived in back then. And I think many of us do this. We try to get back to an old version of ourselves without realizing that we have changed. Our lives have changed. Our values have changed. Our responsibilities have changed. So this is where many women get stuck because instead of seeing those signals as information, we treat them like interruptions, where hunger becomes something to control, fatigue becomes something to push past, and stress becomes something that we normalize. And little by little, we stop working with the body that we have and start trying to force it back into the body we remember. And chasing an old version of yourself comes with a cost. You stop listening, you override hunger, you push through exhaustion, you force the workouts that your body does not currently have capacity for, you ignore stress, and then you tell yourself, I should be able to do what I used to do. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just need to be more disciplined. But what if nothing is wrong with you? What if you're asking today's body to perform under yesterday's circumstances? Because the body that you had before the children, before caregiving, before burnout, before perimenopause, before chronic stress, was living inside a completely different life. You had different responsibilities. There were different demands. You had different recovery and you had different support. And when we refuse to acknowledge that, we spend years fighting the body that we have instead of learning how to care for it. So, this is where the conversation has to go deeper than mindset, because this does not just stay in your thoughts, it shows up in your body. The stress that you push through, the meals that you skip, the recovery that you ignore, the sleep that you sacrifice, and the constant feeling that you should be doing more, your body is collecting all of that information. So when we talk about chasing an old version of ourselves, we are not only talking about confidence, we are talking about the internal environment that your body is trying to function inside. So this is not just emotional. Your body is constantly gathering information: sleep, stress, food intake, recovery, daily movement, hormones, emotional load. When you keep trying to operate above your current capacity, your body notices. Not because your body is against you, because your body is always trying to keep you functioning. So if you are pushing through exhaustion, if you are under eating while managing high stress, if you're ignoring recovery, if you're sleeping poorly, and then trying to maintain the same output during a season that requires a different pace, eventually that shows up. It may show up in cravings. You may have low energy or poor recovery. You may experience more hunger at night. You may have less motivation, but more soreness. You may have more impulsive food decisions, or feeling like the plan is suddenly harder to follow. And that matters for fat loss, because fat loss is not just about creating a calorie deficit on paper. It is also about whether your body and your life can sustain the behaviors that are required to maintain that deficit. The goal is to notice the turn a little bit sooner, because real change does not always mean that you never repeat the cycle. Sometimes it means that you catch it before it takes the whole week. Sometimes it means that you catch it before the whole weekend turns into, well, I already messed up. Sometimes it means that you pause before you send that harsh text, or before you skip the meal, before you decide that your whole day is ruined, before you punish your body for being tired, or before you turn one hard moment into proof that nothing is working. And that is progress. Once you start seeing progress that way, you begin looking at the cycle differently. You stop only paying attention to the part that everyone can see, like the food, the missed workout, the skipped check in, the argument, the moment that you say, forget it. And you start asking an even better question: where did this actually begin? Because most of the time, the visible behavior is not the beginning of the cycle. It is the point where the cycle finally shows up on the outside. Most people think the cycle begins when they overeat, or when they've already skipped the workout, or when they stop tracking, or when they've missed the check in. But I want you to look just before that, a little earlier than that. The cycle usually starts much earlier than we think. It starts in the quiet moments that we tend to brush off, like when you wake up tired and before your feet even hit the floor, you're already telling yourself to push through. Or when you feel hungry, but you keep working because you just need to finish this one last thing. Or when you are irritated, but you say, I'm fine, because explaining it feels like too much. Or when you need help, but instead of asking clearly, you hope someone notices. When you feel disconnected from your body and your first thought is, I need to get stricter. When your schedule changes, but you still expect yourself to produce the same amount of energy. Or when your hormones shift, but you keep eating, training, and judging yourself like your body should feel the same every single week. or when life gets heavier, but you still measure yourself against a season that was lighter, that is usually where the cycle begins. So, as you move through this week, remember your needs are not an inconvenience. Your limits are not a character flaw, and asking for help is not the same thing as giving up. Life changes, capacity changes, relationships change, and the way you support yourself is allowed to change too. Stay connected to what you are beginning to notice, and we'll keep building from there. And I'll see you in the next episode.